That simple, careless moment became the line I crossed, soft and thin as breath, but irreversible. It was a Tuesday of all days. Ordinary in every way except the way his fingers brushed the curve of my waist like they had every right to be there. I wasn't supposed to feel anything. Not with him. Not like that. But the second he reached across me and tugged the belt with one hand, the other settling just above my hip, I forgot where we were. The air inside the car grew too warm, heavy with something unspoken. I held my breath, but it wasn't fear I felt. It was heat. Pure, slow-building heat. Let me back up. His name is Jordan. He's my coworker, the one with the dry humor and the habit of holding eye contact just a second too long. We've shared meetings, coffee breaks, and the kind of casual banter that flirts with a line neither of us ever acknowledged out loud. Not until that day. We had to drive across town for a client pitch. Our manager bailed last minute, so it was just us. Him behind the wheel. Me in a skirt too tight for comfort and a blouse I now regret choosing. "You didn't buckle," he said casually after starting the engine. I looked down, pretending not to notice the way his eyes flicked to my legs. "Oh right." I fumbled with the seatbelt, but it jammed. "Here, let me," he offered, already leaning over before I could answer. His cologne was subtle, but in that confined space it clung to the air between us like something dangerous. His shoulder brushed mine. His breath warmed the side of my neck. But it was his hand, slow, deliberate, guiding the belt across my chest and down over my waist, that made something stir deep in me. Something I thought had gone dormant a long time ago. His fingers grazed the fabric just above my hip bone, then lingered. I should have pulled away. I should have said something sharp, something polite, something loyal. But I didn't. I just watched his profile as he buckled me in, his jaw tight. His lips parted ever so slightly, like he wasn't breathing right either. He clicked the belt into place. And still, he didn't move. Neither did I. A beat passed. Then two. His hand was still there. My phone buzzed in my lap. A message from my husband. Jordan looked down at it. Then at me. That's when I knew. He wasn't just testing a boundary. He was asking a question. And my silence was the answer. The engine hummed, but inside the car, it was silence that roared between us. Jordan's hand still rested against my waist. Not gripping, not pressing, just there. Like it belonged. Like the moment had carved out a new reality where that touch wasn't just allowed but necessary. My body felt suspended between breath and decision. Every nerve on edge, waiting for something I couldn't name. I turned to him slowly, afraid of what I'd see. His eyes didn't flinch. They held mine, calm and steady, but there was a storm beneath. The kind that doesn't show itself until it's already tearing something apart. His fingers twitched slightly, the barest motion, but I felt it like lightning under my skin. "You okay?" he asked, low and rough, like his voice had to push past something inside him to reach me. I nodded, but it was a lie. I wasn't okay. I was unraveling. The seatbelt pressed across my chest like a reminder, taut and inescapable, while his hand stayed planted like an anchor or a dare. I didn't mean to. He started, then stopped. But his hand still didn't move. I should have laughed it off, shifted away, pulled out my phone and pretended to scroll until we were on the road. That's what a faithful wife would have done. That's what I would have done a month ago. A week ago. Maybe even yesterday. But now I didn't move either. I could hear my husband's voice in my mind, cheerful, routine, safe. But safe doesn't make your stomach twist in knots. Safe doesn't make your breath catch when someone looks at you like that. Jordan finally pulled his hand back, slow, almost reluctant, and adjusted the rearview mirror with a sharp breath, like he needed to break the spell. "Client's expecting us by 10, he said, voice clipped. I swallowed hard. Right. We drove. City blocks blurred past the window, but my thoughts stayed lodged back there. In that small, suspended second when anything could have happened. My body still felt where his hand had been, like a phantom trace. The way he gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale, jaw locked, he wasn't okay either. At a red light, he glanced at me. Did I cross a line? It would have been so easy to say yes. To set it straight. To shut it down. But I looked at him, at the flicker of something wild behind his eyes, and whispered, "Maybe." The light turned green. He didn't drive. He just looked at me. And smiled. Not with his mouth but with his eyes. That slow, dangerous smile that meant he knew I wasn't going to stop him the next time either. Not if he touched me again. Not if he leaned closer. Not if the next stoplight was just long enough. And then he said something I didn't expect. Not right away, but it landed in my chest like thunder. I've wanted to do that for months. He said it like a confession, but it sounded more like a promise. I've wanted to do that for months. The words didn't just hang in the air. They burned through it. I looked straight ahead, pretending I hadn't heard, even though every inch of me had. My palms pressed flat against my thighs, cold and tense, trying to ground myself. But nothing in me felt steady anymore. Months. How many meetings had we sat side by side in? How many glances, how many offhand comments had I brushed off, telling myself it was nothing, that he was just charming, that I was imagining it. And now the truth. I shouldn't have said that, he muttered, fingers tightening on the steering wheel as the car finally lurched forward. Forget it. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. We rode in silence for a while, but it wasn't empty. It was full of every touch that never happened, every look that lingered too long. Full of heat and hesitation and the soft weight of possibilities neither of us had dared name until now. I could feel the air between us growing denser with each block. My thoughts were spiraling, not just toward him but away from everything I thought I was sure of. My husband. My marriage. The neat little life I'd spent years folding into perfection. Was I really willing to throw that into chaos? For a man who hadn't even kissed me? The worst part was it didn't feel reckless. It felt inevitable. We're early, Jordan said finally, glancing at the clock. Want coffee? My throat was too dry to speak. I just nodded. He pulled into a small lot, the kind that belonged to a cafe tucked between office buildings, familiar and quiet. The engine cut. We didn't move. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, he said. But his voice said something else. I meant every second of it. You didn't, I said too fast. He looked over sharply. Didn't what? I turned toward him. My heart thudded so hard I thought he might hear it. You didn't make me uncomfortable. His breath hitched barely, but I caught it. Then what did I make you feel? A flicker of daring rose in me. Not the kind that burns things down, but the kind that leans into the flame to see how far it'll spread. I looked him straight in the eye. Like maybe I shouldn't get out of this car. He didn't blink. His hand reached between us again, slow, almost reverent, and brushed a strand of hair off my face. His fingers grazed my cheek and I felt my breath catch. The tension in the air cracked like glass under pressure. But he didn't kiss me. He didn't move closer. Instead, he whispered, "Then don't." And suddenly the cafe, the meeting, the rest of the world, it all faded. Because the only thing I could think about was what might happen next if I stayed. I didn't get out of the car. I couldn't. I sat there, pulse pounding in my throat, his words echoing in my ears like a dare I wasn't sure I was brave enough to take. Then don't. He wasn't touching me anymore, but somehow I felt his presence more now than I did when his hand was on my waist. Like his energy had wrapped around me in the quiet, pulling tighter with every breath I took. The sun slid higher in the sky, casting soft light across the dashboard. A bird chirped outside. Somewhere someone was ordering a latte. The world went on, oblivious. But inside that car, something was shifting slowly, irreversibly. I should go in, I said, barely above a whisper. Jordan didn't answer. He just looked at me with that unreadable calm that always masked something far more dangerous underneath. The way a frozen lake looks still until it cracks. I tried the door handle. My hand trembled. He leaned in slightly, just enough that I could feel the warmth of him again, not touching but close. You don't want to, he said. And God help me, he was right. I didn't want coffee. I didn't want that meeting. I didn't want the routine, the polite laughs, the mask I wore so well every day. I wanted to stay right there and fall into whatever this was, this slow burn, this ache in my chest that pulsed every time he looked at me like that. But I have to, I said. He leaned back, nodding slowly, jaw clenched. Of course. I reached for my bag, trying to reset the moment, to shift it back into something professional, something less charged. But when my hand brushed his, unintentionally, lightly, it felt electric. He didn't move his hand. Neither did I. Instead, my fingers curled around his, soft and hesitant, as if they had a mind of their own. A breathless pause stretched between us. What are we doing? I asked, not even sure if I wanted an answer. His thumb traced the edge of my hand, the tiniest motion, but it sent heat spiraling through me. Losing control, he said softly. Or maybe just finally admitting we never had any. I should have pulled away then. I should have said something firm. Made a joke. Anything to remind us both of who I was, a married woman. His colleague. But I didn't. I let his hand stay tangled with mine. Let the silence stretch. Let my breath hitch when he leaned just a little closer. Enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his skin. His eyes flicked to my lips. Then he stopped. I won't kiss you, he said. I blinked, caught off guard. Why not? His voice was low and raw. Because if I do, you won't go back. My throat tightened. My heart thudded in my chest, full and aching. He was right. And it terrified me how much I wanted to let him. I walked into the cafe with legs that didn't feel like mine. My heartbeat was still in that car, in that silence where he said he wouldn't kiss me. Not because he didn't want to, but because he knew what it would do to me. To us. To everything. That restraint? That was worse than if he had leaned in. It meant he understood the danger too. And he wanted it just as badly. The barista asked me what I'd like. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out at first. Just a latte. Please. Jordan came in a few moments later, cool and composed like nothing had happened. Like his hand hadn't just curled around mine a few minutes ago, like it was his, like I was his. But he didn't look at me when he ordered. And I didn't look at him when he sat across from me. The tension was unbearable. Every time our knees brushed beneath the table, my body tightened with something between panic and desire. We made it through the client meeting with careful smiles and professional tone. If anyone noticed the way we avoided eye contact, they didn't say a word. But I felt it like a pressure under my skin. The weight of everything we hadn't said pressing in with every breath. In the elevator going down, it was just us. The doors closed. We didn't speak. The mirrored walls reflected back a version of me I barely recognized. Flushed cheeks, parted lips. A woman who wasn't entirely innocent anymore. His hand brushed mine again, barely. And that one simple contact lit me up from the inside out. But we said nothing. The drive back was quiet too, not awkward, just charged. Like both of us were holding our breath, afraid to break whatever fragile, dangerous thing we were balancing on. When he pulled up to my office parking lot, I reached for the door handle, ready to bolt, to run back into the safety of my carefully arranged life. But then his voice stopped me. I think about you when I shouldn't, he said. The air in my lungs froze. When I wake up. When I go to sleep. When you wear red. I swallowed hard, hand still on the door. I'm not asking you to say anything. I needed you to know. I turned to him slowly. His eyes met mine, wide open, nothing hidden this time. And I realized with a strange, hollow ache that I had wanted him to say that. I had craved the truth, even if I wasn't ready to handle it. Jordan. He shook his head, cutting me off gently. Don't worry. I won't make this harder than it already is. I got out without another word. But that night I lied. I told my husband the meeting went fine. That traffic was rough. That Jordan was polite and professional. I said all of it with a straight face. And the entire time I could still feel his hand against mine, and hear his voice whispering, I think about you when I shouldn't. That was the first real lie I told. But it wouldn't be the last. The dreams started that night. They weren't wild or explicit, not in the obvious ways. But they were vivid. Felt. Real. In one I was back in the car. But this time he didn't pull away. His mouth found mine in the silence, soft at first, then deeper. The kind of kiss that makes time unravel. I woke up gasping, sweat cooling on my neck, my husband's arm draped loosely over my hip. He didn't stir. But I did. Inside. The next morning I stood in the shower longer than usual, letting the water run down my spine while memory tangled with want. I replayed the brush of Jordan's fingers on my face, the look in his eyes when he said he thought about me, and I let myself go there. Just for a moment. What if? What if I let it happen? Not just the kiss, but everything. The consequences. The mess. The reality of what it would mean to want someone else this much, and not pretend otherwise. It wasn't just about Jordan. It was about me. Somewhere along the way I had lost the part of myself that craved, that felt alive, that looked in the mirror and didn't just see a wife, a coworker. A woman checking every box but never quite feeling full. Jordan saw that part. He awakened it like it had been lying dormant, waiting for someone to notice it was still there. I started texting him. Not about work. Just little things. Did you see the moon tonight? Ran into that weird guy from accounting. Thought of you. And his replies? Quick. Thoughtful. Always with just enough suggestion to make my pulse race. Then one night, the message that changed everything. Jordan. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I kissed you? I stared at the screen for a full minute. And then I typed, without hesitation. Me. I think about it more than I should. 3 dots appeared. Paused. Then disappeared. I thought maybe he backed off. Got spooked. But then my phone vibrated again. Jordan. Come to my place. Just to talk. I won't touch you. Not unless you ask me to. Every rational voice in my head screamed no. But the voice that had been silent for far too long, the one that belonged to the woman I used to be, the one who still wanted, that voice said go. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. Lipstick half faded. Eyes too wide. My heart wasn't steady. My hands weren't steady. But the decision? It was terrifyingly clear. I told my husband I was staying late to finish a report. The lie slid out of my mouth too easily, smooth practiced. And when he kissed my cheek and told me not to work too hard, something twisted in my chest. Guilt. Maybe. But it didn't stop me from getting in the car. Jordan's apartment wasn't far. 10 minutes, maybe less. But every second of that drive felt like a countdown. Not just to crossing a line, but to stepping into a version of myself I hadn't met before. He lived in a quiet building, 4th floor, corner unit. I hesitated outside his door longer than I should have, fingers hovering over the knock. The hallway smelled like fabric softener and someone's dinner. The kind of ordinary that should have kept me grounded. But the second the door opened, the world shifted. He looked different. Softer somehow. A gray t-shirt, low lighting behind him, no walls up this time. His eyes locked onto mine and everything else. My reasons, my marriage, my fear. Faded into the background. Come in, he said, voice low. I stepped over the threshold and something inside me went quiet. Not numb but alert. Awake. We didn't talk much at first. Just sat. A glass of wine between us, the hum of some ambient playlist in the background. The kind of stillness that wasn't empty at all. It pulsed with everything we weren't saying. Finally he looked over at me. I meant it, you know, he said. About not touching you. Unless you ask. I nodded, heart pounding. I know. He leaned back, one arm draped over the couch, the other holding his glass loosely. His body was close enough that I could feel the heat rolling off him, but he didn't close the space. Not yet. I looked down at my hands, then back at him. What are we doing? His voice was steady, letting the truth breathe. There was a beat of silence. And then I said something I didn't plan. I think I've wanted you since the 3rd day we met. He blinked. Slowly. Why the 3rd? Because that's when I caught myself watching you, not just looking. Watching. Imagining things I wasn't supposed to. He inhaled sharply. And something flickered in his eyes. Some combination of hunger and restraint that made my skin tighten with anticipation. But still he didn't touch me. You don't have to stay, he said. We can forget this. We can pretend. I shook my head. I don't want to pretend anymore. My voice was barely there, but it didn't matter. He heard it. I leaned in, not all the way, just enough that our breath mingled in the air between us. His hand lifted slightly, hovered near my knee, then retreated like touching me would break something sacred. I don't want to be reckless, he murmured. But I want to feel something, I said. And that was the moment. The second everything cracked open. I reached out, my fingers finding his, and laced them together. Not a kiss. Not a confession. Just the quiet, undeniable truth of wanting. The kind of touch that says I'm not asking for forever. Just this. Just now. He didn't pull me in. He let me come to him. And somehow that made it feel even more intimate, like he was giving me the choice, the power, the space to step into something I couldn't step back from. So I did. Slowly. Carefully. Like slipping into warm water after standing in the cold for far too long. Our foreheads touched first. Then noses. Then the softest brush of lips. Not even a kiss, not yet. Just the possibility of one, suspended between the inhale and the release. My hands found his chest, fingers splaying over the steady thrum of his heartbeat. His breath hitched, but he held still, waiting. And when I finally kissed him, really kissed him, it wasn't wild or rushed. It was deep, unfolding, like a truth we'd both carried too long, spoken in silence, with lips and breath and trembling fingers. There was no need for words. Everything was in the way he touched me. Gently at first, reverently, like I was both flame and glass. His hands on my waist, my back, my hair. Always pulling me closer, but never past where I was ready to go. The night didn't end in chaos. Didn't need to. It ended with me lying on his couch, curled into him, our legs tangled, the room quiet except for the occasional hum of passing traffic outside his window. And his voice low against my temple. You don't have to figure it all out tonight. I know. But you don't regret coming here, do you? I paused. No. I regret waiting this long. He exhaled like he'd been holding that question in for weeks. And in the morning I left before sunrise. No tearful goodbyes. No promises. Just the ghost of his kiss on my collarbone, and the weight of what I'd done trailing behind me like a second shadow. When I got home, my husband was still asleep. I stood in the doorway and watched him for a long time, my heart caught in a strange, aching space between comfort and restlessness, between what was safe and what made me feel. This story isn't about villains. No one here wore black or white. It's about the moments that sneak up on you, the hands that linger too long, the questions that never get asked, the hunger you don't realize you've buried until someone looks at you like they already know. I don't know where things go from here. Maybe nowhere. Maybe further than I can admit out loud. But I do know this. Something woke up in me that night. Something I can't put back to sleep. And maybe I don't want to.